So, hi everyone. As we're going to start in a few minutes, waiting for our speakers, I will start by providing a full security updates on the situation on the ground here in Israel. For those that don't know me, I'm Sasha Reutemann, the CEO of the Combat Antisemitism Movement. Formerly, I was in the IDF spokesperson unit, representing all IDF for digital efforts. And today we're going to have a briefing both by Major General Amos Gilad and Amos Yadlin, and then Sarit Zehavi, Lieutenant Colonel Sarit Zehavi, to provide a full perspective on the situation on the ground here in Israel, from the north to the south, and also the international affairs and the impact on Jewish communities worldwide. As we already see, we have a big impact in our communities. So first of all, I would like to thank all of you for joining from across the world. I think it's very important for us to share what exactly it's happening, to provide accurate information. So on your end, you can understand much deeper the exact situation and evaluate your policy actions across the world to support Israel and the Jewish communities that are suffering from that very well. So just to start from the beginning, on Saturday morning, approximately at 5 a.m., Hamas opened a coordinated attack from the air, sea, and ground. While they surprised the IDF, they surprised all the civilians in the region, which were not ready for this attack. And that's mistakes that Israel will learn from and will improve for the future. More than 1,500 Hamas terrorists have been infiltrating Israel. The IDF has collected bodies of 1,500 terrorists. I don't know if you can imagine the quantity. It is estimated that in total 2,000 terrorists entered and infiltrated Israel. 500 went back into Gaza, with more than 150 kidnapped civilians, mainly women, children, and men, also soldiers. While the attack happened, Hamas fired more than 3,500 rockets towards city in Israel. So the rockets basically blocked the visibility of the IDF, so they couldn't see what's happening on the ground. And that allowed the ground forces of Hamas to enter Israel. When Hamas forces enter Israel, they went army base by army base, community by community. And unfortunately, I have to report that in some villages, and only today, we saw, for example, in Kfar Aza, they killed about 20% of the village. The same in Be'eri, when they murder men, women, children, elder people, and everyone they could find. We see on the video footage that we're starting only now to receive from across the world that what we were thinking of, it's a reality. And it's very hard for us as the Jewish people, Israeli people, to see that, because it reminds us the worst time of the history, the worst time when Jews were weak, when the Nazis did exactly the same. And today we are not able really to imagine that this is the reality of our communities. A few hours after the attack started, it took a lot of time for the IDF and Israel to understand how deep was the attack, how deep was the intrusion. For the past 3 days, the IDF forces have been fighting on the ground until the last terrorist that was hiding into some of the villages have been killed. And I think the IDF reported recently in the past hours that there is no anymore, at least within their knowledge, terrorists in the communities. They've been all killed, fortunately, at this stage. The evacuation of civilians of this area have been completed at this stage. There is no anymore civilians in the close border of Gaza. They all moved to the center of Israel for now. And we had the same situation in terms of evacuation from the north. We had a lot of villages evacuated because of the threat from Hezbollah. Until now, Hezbollah hasn't played a big role. They've been fired a few rockets, some exchange fire. One of the head of a battalion there was killed in in an exchange of fire with Hezbollah. The forces of the IDF are really well organized in the north right now. Northern border is very reinforced by forces, reserve army forces, regular army forces. At this stage, the IDF is preparing its plan and finalizing the plans of retaliation in Gaza. And we have seen during the past night a different attitude of the IDF, which we haven't seen until now, both on the way the army is looking at targets. The second level is the way that the army is activating every tool possible, both by cutting the energy in Gaza and not allowing anything to happen. As the Prime Minister of Israel said, this is a war, this is not an operation. And how it was described by every minister in Israel. This is the worst crime committed against Jews since the Holocaust, with right now approximately 1,000 Israelis have been murdered, killed by Hamas terrorists. So I think this is the situation right now. The other thing that we are seeing across communities around the world is related to many demonstrations that we can see in some cities. And I think that today on the call, we have legislators, senators, congressmen, and others that are representing different places. We have seen a lot of scenes of pro-Palestinian voices spreading demonstration in the street. In Sydney, I will say that we even heard calls to gas Jews. And we see that across the world. It's very disturbing. We have never been against the Palestinian cause, but when it's related to supporting what Hamas did, we have a very hard problem to see that happening in communities across the world. And we think the way that Hamas behave, which is exactly like ISIS, shouldn't be accepted by anyone. And we hope that law enforcement will take serious steps to not allow this demonstration to continue to grow, especially with the messaging that have been places there. Secondly, it's very important for us to continue to see the support, and I would like to say that we have been very, very grateful in Israel for the support that we received from the United States until now, both by sending armament, support, diplomatic support, political support, and it's very important that when we deal with an organization like ISIS, we work as a worldwide coalition to end it. Israel is the front line of this coalition right now, with the support of our allies, European allies, American allies, and other allies. And it's very important that you all support and continue to give the back to Israel to represent the fight of the Western democracies against the local ISIS, which is Hamas at this stage right now. We're going to see the IDF operation growing. Probably we're going to see ground invasion and more. It's been decided by the cabinet of Israel, the security cabinet of Israel, that Hamas should be erased, shouldn't exist anymore. And the price could be very heavy. The media will not be sympathetic with Israel, and we know that. We are aware of that, and we're ready for that at this stage. And it's very important to understand that Israel would like to protect every civilian life as possible. We know that the Hamas is always using human shield as one of the main tactics and strategy. We're going to see more of human shield use in the Gaza Strip in the next following days, and we are very sad about that. The Hamas has been breaking international laws in the past 72 hours, countless time, by firing rockets at civilians, by attacking civilians, raping women, kidnapping civilians, and killing civilians. So we're going to continue to see Hamas breaking international laws and committing crimes against humanity at this level that we couldn't imagine that 80 years again after the Holocaust it will happen. I will be happy to answer any question that you have on the military operation, international relations that are happening right now. I will just double check if we have our speakers, General Amos Yadlin and Sarit Zehavi, if they've joined, if someone can update me. If not, feel free to send me any question that you have to continue this briefing. I'll be happy to answer any question that you have. And if you don't have any question, I will continue with some important tasks that we see in front of us, and also important information that we know that there exists. And I would like to start with the relationship between Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, which is for us, a very deep and important connection to be understood by the world. Hamas is not acting alone, is acting with the support of Iran, financial support, ideological support, and also army support in terms of the strategy that have been implemented. These are all strategies that we can recognize from Hezbollah planning to attack Israel. They use exactly the same strategies that they've implemented. So we heard that some organizations have declined the fact that Hamas has been trained by Iran or not. They've been inspired definitely by Iran. They've been trained in many places. Many Hamas commanders did some training in Iran and go back to Gaza via Egypt in the past. So definitely Iran is being responsible for this attack and for supporting Hamas with all the logistic, the ideology, and the strategy they need. A lot of commanders of Hamas are being trained both by Hezbollah and Iran. Hezbollah is an enemy also #1 of Israel, close to our border. Pay attention to the reaction of Israel. And this is why Israel should be very strong to keep the deterrence against Hezbollah as strong as possible. And the fact that the US Army has sent both warships and armament is a big, big deterrence statement to Hezbollah and Iran to not move. And it's very important to keep this deterrence strong as ever and to show the unity. I must say that the statement that was made yesterday, a joint statement by the Biden administration, the president of France and other countries, is the message that the world needs to hear, message of support, politically, militarily, and to see that we continue to see a lot of support in the streets. We see a lot of demonstration for Israel in communities across the world, and are very important that delegates are joining this demonstration, that your voice are being heard at this stage. We need that as a country and as a people, as Western democracy, to have every voices aligned, especially that this fight is a fight of everyone. We're not fighting here a fight of Israel against the Palestinian. This is a fight from the Western world against a violent Islamic organization that should be erased from earth. I'd like to continue with the most important thing that we're going to see in our communities is the export of the conflict into the streets of United States, Europe, and other places. We already started, as I speak a little bit before, by seeing the demonstration and others. We're going to see communities attacked as we have seen in different conflicts. And this is why the law enforcement that you may work with are critical to be well-trained to understand the situation, to understand their role in terms of protecting the Jewish communities and making sure that all the communities receive the necessary support they will need, if it's financially, if it's security support, and also a presence of police officers in front synagogues, schools, Jewish school and Jewish institution. I think that it's very important that we are ready for the next phase, which is always going outside of the region and going the streets where the Jewish communities are living, and we already see very, very strong images that we have hoped to not see at this stage. So I think that this is very important to really analyze and track and monitor the situation in your cities, in your states, to make sure that all the necessary steps are being implemented in advance. I would like to also mention the war of images that we can see online. It's a very difficult one, with Hamas playing a propaganda war by sharing some fake images, by playing with the mind of the Israelis and the weaknesses of Israelis, by seeing their closest being hostages in Gaza. It's very important to double check every information that is online, to use official sources only, and looking for the real information, as it's very hard in this type of battleship warfare system to know what is right, what is wrong. And we want to make sure that we provide the most correct information to everyone, both on the number of rockets, on the number of people died, on the number of terror attacks that have been happened. So we are very careful to provide any information that is double checked by everyone. We're happy to verify for any one of you the information that you are not sure about, so feel free to reach out to us by email, and you have our email as you register to this briefing. We hope that we can be able to provide the most correct and accurate information on the situation on the ground at any moment. We continue to see today rocket fire from Gaza to Jerusalem, the Dan metropolitan in Israel, where you have Tel Aviv and the biggest cities. We have about 5 million to 6 million Israelis in the bomb shelter going during the rocket attacks. 2 hours ago, we had infiltration attempt by 4 Hamas terrorists from the sea to the Zikid army base, which was immediately stopped. And we continue to see a lot of movement in Judea and Samaria, and I think this is the next front to be ready for. We see Hamas pushing a lot, both Arab Israelis and Palestinian from Judea and Samaria, to join the operation that Hamas has been launched and to try to destabilize Israel from inside. The IDF is ready for that, has been trained for that, and has been witnessing such type of attempts in the past, I will say 2-3 years. So the IDF and the police forces are very ready for any type of attempts in the cities. We have learned from the mistake from the past, from I think 18 months ago, while the Arab Muslim population in Israel starts attacking the Jewish population. So the police, which is in charge right now, is ready to attack that. We heard a lot of voices, both in the mosques in Israel and in Jerusalem as well, supporting Hamas, and the police has been stopped all the mosques and have been stopping allowing them to spread hateful messages in the mosque to push the Arab population to go against the Jewish population into Israel. So if we need to summarize the security situation right now, basically Israel is fighting in 4 fronts. We have the Gaza front, which we described pretty well. We have the Hezbollah front in the north, which is a little bit unknown where Hezbollah wants to take the war. I think the deterrence that Israel will create against Gaza and the support of the allies is putting Hezbollah in the wrong and difficult place. Will they want to join this war or not? Because they know that the northern front of Israel is totally ready for any move of Hezbollah. The third front is Judea and Samaria and the Arab population in Israel, where basically is more control. We are very afraid of the lone terrorists that will try to make an attempt. We have seen in the past 2 and 3 years that it's working. Sometimes they have success. The success are very painful. They succeed to infiltrate some communities and to kill the family or one person that was not protected at the time. And this little terrorist attack that we have seen in the past 2 years, right now they seem very little following what we have seen in the past 72 hours, but they are very painful, but Israel is ready for that. And the fourth front that we spoke about is the international fronts that include the support that Israel needs at this stage, the communities to be protected and making sure that the Jewish communities are protected in every country where they live, and to continue to support the total support of our allies from across the world. So I think that this is the full update that I have right now. I think that we have a few questions, so we're going to go from question by question. I will try to answer all of them, and feel free to add more questions in the chat. And maybe someone can update me in the chat if we have more speakers that will join. Since I've been a lot of years in the IDF, so I know to brief, but I will love for speakers to be able to join as well. What details are available on the failure of Israel's security, or perhaps the US as well, to lead a surprise attack? It's a very good question. I think that this question has not been fully answered, and we're going to answer it, at least in Israel, when everything will be done. But we know about a few failures on the side of Israel. One failure was the fact that some of the battalions were moved to Judea and Samaria, and they couldn't move back on time to the area of Gaza. So that's one of the failure that we know. Also the failure of being on Saturday and holiday, that everything seems calm and the soldiers were not ready for that. And the total failure of the intelligence, as Israel was totally surprised. So I think that these are the 3 failures that we can identify at this stage. There are some voices that spoke about the fact that Egypt was able to provide some kind of information to Israel, but that's not clear at all. So we don't know about the intelligence failure and how it was planned. What is clear that the planning of this attack took about 18 months to a year at the minimum to plan such huge attack. So this is what we know. So I will go to the next question. This is can you provide the full extent of Hezbollah's engaged in attack in the north? So the Hezbollah attack in the north have been, I think that we have, this is Sarit. So let me try to find Sarit. I think that we can enter her here, if I'm not wrong. And she will be able to provide all the answers on Hezbollah. Okay, so we had here more panelists to be able to answer the Hezbollah question. Sarit, can you hear me? Can you unmute and start speaking, please? Okay, we have General Amos Gilad that is here and is able to provide. So if General, you are able to provide an update on your end, and thank you for joining.
So, good evening.
Yes.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. After 3 years of Zoom, I hope that you will be able to put me inside a little bit earlier. Anyway. חבר'ה, אני עושה פה זה, אפשר שקט? Okay. The attack on Saturday was a surprise attack that led to a catastrophic result. It's about 1,000 Israelis that were killed. If you compare it to September 11, and in a proportion to the American population, it's 40,000 people. 40,000 people in one day by a terror organization. It's a catastrophic failure of 3 pillars. The fact that there was no intelligence warning, the fact that the operational forces were not ready and didn't have being able to protect the settlement, the kibbutzim, the moshavim, and the fact that the Israeli leadership for the last 9 months was busy with legislative reform, revolution, whatever you called it, and the deterrence of Israel was deteriorating. Yesterday, the intelligence minister of Egypt said that he warned the prime minister. The prime minister basically denied it, but doesn't matter. He was warned by his intelligence agency. He was warned by his chief of staff, his defense minister, independent analyst like mine. I wrote a piece in March warning him that he liked very much to get into history as Churchill, but he will get into history as Golda. And the title of my piece was from 1973 failure to 2003 failure. I'm not putting all the blame on the prime minister, but the buck stopped there. The intelligence had its part, and the operational part of the IDF as well. The results were catastrophic. We were attacked by a terror organization with no mercy, no rules of any humanitarian behavior. They killed women, children, whole families. They raped, they burned the bodies. Unbelievable, unbelievable. There are horrible clips on the social networks, and it's highly not recommended to view them. This terror attack have changed the way Israel will treat with the Gaza Strip, because Israel in the past was very much concerned about the welfare of the population. Let them come work in Israel, let Qatar finance fuel for them, and so on and so forth. And the wrong paradigm in Israel was that Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, has the same goals of accountability to his people, taking care of their welfare, having food and standard of living that went up in Gaza, but it was all a decisive maneuver to make Israel thinking that they are deterred and they are care about their people, but in the same time, it prepare a military assault. Why the Israeli intelligence haven't picked the signals from the noise, or whether the concept of Hamas is deterred and Hamas is interested more in the welfare of the people than being a terror organization. This should be investigated in the end of the war, but not now. The war have started by Hamas, and it will continue. It will continue for a couple of weeks, and the dilemmas that the decision makers in Israel are now facing are the following dilemmas. First, how to make Hamas unable to do it again. And the decision of the government is to destroy Hamas military capabilities and governance capability. They look at Hamas as an enemy country that should be destroyed, very much like what the Allies have done to Germany and Japan. So Israel immediately had a siege over Gaza and a bombing campaign against any target that belonged to Hamas operatives, command room operation, and so on and so forth. We are not yet in a Dresden approach that the US have done vis-a-vis the Nazi German, but it will be much, much tougher than how Israel treated Gaza in the past. Because in the past, we put a lot of effort not to hit innocent people. And this time, the goal is that every military target is legitimate target, and according to the international law and to the just war principle, everything will be targeted. And Hamas should bring back the hostages. And this is the second dilemma. Are you attacking Hamas forcefully when they hold 140, 120? Nobody knows the numbers, because they basically burned many of the bodies that they killed. So we don't know if somebody was killed and is still in Israel, and we haven't identified him, or he is in Gaza. So this very problematic occupation of identifying the bodies and understand who is where is not ended yet. The second dilemma concerning Gaza is whether you need to do a ground operation. And ground operation is also very devastating, because it's get an artillery coverage and air combat close support. Israel in the past tried to avoid it because we were very sensitive to casualties. After 1,000 casualties, this will not be an excuse anymore. And the idea is that anybody in the Middle East that will think about doing something like that will understand very well what will be the results. The third dilemma has to do with the North. Senwar, the head of the gang in Gaza, want very much to ignite all the fronts against Israel. The Hezbollah front, the Syrian front, the Iranian front, the West Bank terrorists. This is his dream, that he started a rolling escalation all over the place. The chances for it are not high, but not zero. Nasrallah basically is a leader with experience. He tried Israel in 2006, and after the war, he said, if I knew the Israeli reaction, I wouldn't kidnap the soldiers. And for 17 years, he is deterred. But if he will feel that Israel is weak and Israel is not succeeding in Gaza, he may join. He may join. I think that the US aircraft carrier that came to the East Med is not coming to help us with Gaza. We can deal with Gaza. It is coming to deter the bad guys in Beirut and in Iran. Because basically the Middle East is now with a lot of influence from the radical regime in Iran. They are controlling 4 Arab countries, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen, and they feel that they are on the horse. They have good relation with China, good relation with Russia, and this is why the US even perceived to leave the Middle East, disengage, especially after the humiliating withdrawal from Afghanistan, is still the only superpower that can project military power to the Middle East. Everybody knows that America is very strong. Everybody estimates that America is unwilling to use its power. So we'll have to see what the effect of the American standing by Israel. And this is very important. As an advocate, many years of the Israeli-American alliance, we never ask Americans to fight for us. We will fight for Israel ourselves. However, the fact that President Biden stands behind us, we may have some disagreements on the future of Judea and Samaria, fine, but on the security of the people of Israel, there is no a page between us, and the president gave Israel all the backing and the support. I will stop here if there are questions.
Let me tell you if you have a direct question, General, and I don't think we have a direct question right now, so if you can say a few more minutes, and in the meantime, I'm going to ask Sarit Zehavi to start the briefing mainly on the north and north border.
Yes, first, I'm sorry that I was not with you earlier because my kids in Herzliya and they had alert and I wanted to make sure that they're all fine. And meanwhile, we had alerts here in Western Galilee and some hits over here in the Western Galilee. I'm based in a place where I can see all the helicopters, everything that is happening behind me, just outside of the window. We understand that there is full alert of the IDF, full preparedness of the IDF on Israel's northern borders, whether it's Syria or Lebanon. We've seen the past few days, all the forces, whether it's infantry, armor, logistics, everything going up to the border. We understand that since all of that started, we had few attacks. I think now it's the fifth, I've lost counting. Fifth attack against the state of Israel that comes from Lebanon. We had the anti-tanks, 2 anti-tanks attacks against IDF positions. We had one incident of mortars at Kiryat Shmona, and now the falls that I've just mentioned, which I don't know the ammunition yet, but it's probably rockets. And we had the infiltration yesterday in the Western Galilee, not far from where I live, where a senior officer, Lieutenant Colonel, was killed. He is Druze, he lives not far from where I live, and his driver. Two Hezbollah military operatives, two Palestinian Islamic Jihad military operatives were killed as well. Another one fled back to Lebanon. In retaliation, the IDF retaliation to all these incidents, until that moment, as we speak, things are developing, but until that moment, IDF retaliation was very limited. I guess IDF is interested for now to keep the northern front quiet as much as possible. It's not quiet, but as much as possible, meaning that IDF destroyed watching tower positions on the border. These are watching tower positions that were established in the past year and a half. I've seen them many times. I've seen the Hezbollah military operatives all prepared for war in the past year. There are like 20 watching towers like that all over the border with Lebanon, and IDF destroyed very few of them, killing 3 Hezbollah terrorists. They are now just had the funerals there. Limited response, great alertness, and I must tell you something that I've seen just before I joined you. I was analyzing all the meetings that were held between the leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, the Iranians, whoever they are, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas in the past month and a half. And as an ex-officer in the army, Yadlin probably knows better than me, this was clear process of confirmation of plans, of operational plan. Like you see how you meet with the less senior, the committee, and then you talk about the goals, and then you go and talk with the executive operational players, which is Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and you give them the directions and goals that you just received from the boss, which is Iran, and then they go to work, and then you get another request from the Iranian, hurry up, because there is normalization process between Israel and Saudi Arabia right after a visit of the foreign minister of Iran in Saudi Arabia, and then again a meeting with Palestinian Islamic Jihad after a meeting with the senior person, with the foreign minister of Iran, a meeting of Nasrallah with Islamic Jihad. The key player in all these meetings is Nasrallah. He is there. He's the one who is running between the boss and the operational level. And I believe that Nasrallah knows what's the plan. We didn't understand yet what's the plan. I leave it here. More questions.
Thank you, Sarit and Amos. What are the chances in your end that the conflict can get an all regional conflict, or you don't have expectation that both Hamas and other entities may join? And also maybe a general, you can answer on your expectation on the Israeli Arabs in Israel. What do you see following the previous conflict that we had? If you think there is a chance also to see a big conflict opening on the Judea and Samaria front.
You want me?
Yes, if you can.
I didn't hear you, but I guess you asked about the possibility of Iran joining.
About Judea and Samaria mainly, more than Iran. If you think that we're going to see, like we saw in the previous conflict, a rise of violence from within Israel and from Judea and Samaria as well.
I think the chances are low, but we are ready for that. One of the problems in the south, operationally, that many forces and battalions were removed from the south to Judea and Samaria. So Israel is holding Judea and Samaria in a very effective way. I will not tell you that a terrorist here and there can attack, but it's not the same military capabilities that Hamas were built in Gaza. And this is one of the lessons from the case. Israel will never allow a state, a Palestinian state, a mini-state, a Hamastan, to rebuild their military again. We gave them the possibility to do it because we care about the population. We want them to have a better life. The idea was that Hamas is deterred and weakened and not such a military threat. The lesson was learned, and we will not allow anybody to build again a military capability on our borders, 1 kilometer from our kibbutzim, anywhere. I think the lessons from 2021 were implemented vis-a-vis the population in Israel. I remind everybody that most of the population is good citizens. It was only a very low percentage of criminal and very radicals that went to the street. I think we can handle it. My concern is, as I say, Hezbollah. In case they decided to join, it will not be a surprise, and Israel will have to consider a preemptive. If we will understand that they are going to attack, we have to preempt. And Iran, once again, is very careful, and they prefer, of course, that their proxy will take all the heat back and not Iran itself.
I want to connect to what the general just said and say two things. With regard to the Arabs inside Israel, what we see here in the Galilee is that there is incitement in social media, that fake news that are telling the Arabs that the Jews are about to attack them, that there are militias of Jews that are will out of the streets with weapons, that Jews are carrying weapons to go and attack Arabs. These kind of rumors to frighten Israeli Arabs. I believe, I don't have the proofs for that, but from previous incidents like May 2021, I believe that this is Iran behind this fake news, trying to create a situation that Arabs will attack Jews also inside Israel, and that we will fight each other in the streets also over here. Second, about what you talked about, no tolerance to capabilities anymore. I think no tolerance to capabilities anymore is also right with regard to the northern border. I can tell you I have not been sleeping in the past 3 nights, because what happened in the south is a catastrophe that can happen in the north as well if the IDF is not prepared. Any barrier can be crossed. Any barrier can be crossed. We know that all these walls and everything, it's not enough if you're not prepared. The IDF now is prepared, but you cannot preserve this kind of preparedness for years. Eventually, we'll have to lower the alert. And I think that we must make sure that when we lower the alert, the capability of Radwan brigades in Hezbollah, 2,500 soldiers, very well trained, even more professional than Hamas and PIJ, it means that they need to be eliminated. So I will be able to sleep at night knowing that I'm not going to experience the same catastrophe of what we experienced in the south.
Yes. I would like just a question. I know that General, you need to go, but it's the first time in history that so many civilians have been all hostages in Gaza. And what do you think will be the strategy of Israel? How Israel will deal with the release of the hostages in the following hours? Will Israel also act in a military way, considering that we have hostages, or will act considering that we don't have hostages? So we'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I said this is a huge dilemma that we never faced before. As I understand now, they decided to destroy Hamas without paying attention to the hostage. Will this strategy hold in the environment of communication, media, social network today? Future will tell. But this is the decision. Of course, Israel will be open to any mediation that will do an exchange, at least of women and children and elderly, and to let them take their terrorist women and sick terrorists. But nobody, I think, at that moment is doing it. And we hope that because Hamas is in euphoria, you know, they were able to break through the fence. They were able to be in some, not some, 12 kibbutzim. They took prisoners. They beheaded babies. They feel that they are on the right track, and Israel should give them much more than Israel is willing to do. I think within a couple of days they will understand what's happening in Gaza, and the negotiation may be more realistic, but we are not there yet.
Okay, thank you, General. I would like to continue with one more question to Sarit about the intelligence and the gap of intelligence. And we had someone asking the question a little bit before, and as a former intelligence officer in the IDF, so how you explain the gap of information, the lack of information that Israel had to face ahead of this situation?
No doubt that after we'll finish the war itself, tough questions will be asked. I can tell you a few things. I'm not sure I will be able to answer your questions because I'm not with intelligence. I don't know what the intelligence picture looked like. But I can say what I know. IDF in the past year warned from a war, a multi-front war against the state of Israel. The expectation was that the leading arena will be the north. As I've told you, Nasrallah was the key player in all these meetings. And IDF knew that Gaza can always surprise us. This is a sentence that I'm quoting from one of the generals that I spoke with. He said that Gaza can always surprise us. Everybody knew on this plan of multi-front campaign that Iran is trying to create against the state of Israel. This was not a secret. Iran itself didn't hide it. There was a lot of propaganda that Iran made around that. We should have known. But in order to be prepared to what happened, you need to recruit reserves because, as I've said, you cannot you cannot prevent infiltration, definitely not invasion, if you don't recruit reserve. We've seen this in Yom Kippur War. It is very simple. And there was a barrier there as well. The barrier, these physical barriers are not enough. What happened in this case when we speak operationally is that Hamas had a very specific plan of how to blind us. The first thing that Hamas did was to attack the observation post on the border with drones, dropping the bombs from drones on this observation post, and meaning just blinding us. We couldn't see anything. Second, Hamas at the same time bombed the whole area, meaning that the soldiers had to enter in such a heavy attack of mortars and missiles, had to enter into shelter. So this is another blindness. And third, with the conception, in the past few weeks, the border was very active. And all the time there were provocations and riots. And no, it didn't happen that few hundreds or few tens actually crossed. So, okay, it's another provocation. Nobody believed that they're actually going to cross. I think the combination of all of that with the tactical level, with the combination of the fact that probably we didn't have specific information of the specific date and a specific hour. We didn't have Marwan, for those of you who knows the history of Yom Kippur War, and it didn't have King Hussein. I hope we didn't, okay? And the combination of lack of strategic intelligence of when and where this is going to happen with the operational plan that Hamas executed eventually caused to this outcome. And again, I'm saying all of that very, very carefully because we don't have the full picture and there are many things that we don't know.
Okay. So thank you, Sarit. I know that you need to go, but maybe you have a final word to the international audience and legislator. What do you think they can do to help and make sure that Israel receives the support that it needs?
Look, it's very encouraging to see the international support. But from my experience in the past, it's not going to last when we speak about Israel trying to completely destroy these radical ideologies and radical terrorist groups, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, whatever it is, doesn't matter. There is no patience in international community when we are trying to actually, what we call in Hebrew, finish the job, because the cost is high, because these players are using their own people as human shields, and they are getting killed as well. Your mission is to make sure that nobody will forget the context, that nobody will forget what happened here, and that nobody will forget that the player that should be held accountable to any death of Palestinians, again, Lebanese, Gazans, I don't know, whoever, is not the state of Israel, is the terrorist groups that we are dealing with. Second, whatever happens in the Middle East doesn't stay in the Middle East. This radical ideology of Sunni Islam or Shiite Islam is not my problem or just Sasha's problem or Israel's problem. It is a worldwide problem. Iran provided drones that attacked in Ukraine that are based in Venezuela, 2,000 kilometers from Miami. It is within their range. It's fueling terror and supporting terror all over the world. Like you understood ISIS, you should understand what Iran is doing. And you know what? Who knows best what Iran is doing is the Iranian people. They know best because they suffer themselves from this government.
Great. So, Sari, thank you very much. I would like to thank everyone. And just to wrap up, I would like to read the different updates just for you to understand what happened in the past hour. So in the past hour, we had rockets in the north that Sari reported about it. We had a barrage of rockets in the south. We had an attempt of infiltration from Gaza. And we had Israel reacting with mortars to this rocket. So that's only in 1 hour. So we see that the situation is very intense. The international support is very much needed. And I know that many of your communities have been hosting support gathering, and we really thankful for that. And we need more of that. And as the situation will be worse and continue to be worse, we're going to need to get more support from international allies. And we would like to thank you deeply for the support that you have provided to Israel and the Jewish people, and especially to the communities that you represent in your cities, in your states, that will probably suffer from the export of the conflict in different places. And we love to work with you. If you need any support of law enforcement training, information, or any type of additional data that you don't have or knowledge that you would like to have, we're happy to help and to provide any support needed. And I would like just to say thank you to everyone. And obviously our thoughts are going to the families of the victims, to the people of Israel who have been suffering in the past 72 hours. So thank you, everyone. And we hope to meet you again in a better condition, in a better situation.